One of the developments that has had a huge impact on home video gaming over the last 20 years or so is online gaming. Now, it all started a little bit further back than you might realise. In 1999, the Sega Dreamcast hit the UK. It had launched slightly earlier in North America and Japan. And unfortunately, it wasn't the huge success that Sega were expecting, but it did have something that was new. It had a built-in modem that allowed people to connect to online services. And this set the scene. It really showed that there was an appetite for this type of service, even though the other games consoles at the time didn't really have anything built in to offer. One of the problems, of course, was accessing the internet. And in the early 2000s, broadband came to North America and Western Europe. And this always-on internet service gave multiplayer gaming a new lease of life. You didn't tie up your telephone line when you wanted to go online. And so in 2003, soon after the launch of the original Xbox console, we had Xbox Live. You had to put a CD in and load the software, but it put an extra item in your Xbox menu that allowed you to go online. And for the first time, you could start to play games with your friends, and the whole system of games and achievements was born. Of course, this matured very swiftly. Both the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 had online multiplayer gaming baked into their systems. And it proved hugely popular, with millions of people signing up to play online to the PlayStation Network and to Xbox Live Gold subscriptions. You didn't have to have a subscription to download games, but if you wanted to play against your friends, then you did. And this, of course, gave rise to a huge multiplayer gaming surge. You could battle your friends in death matches, and the Call of Duty franchise really capitalised on this new functionality, with all of its games having some sort of online multiplayer, sometimes to the detriment of the campaigns, which got shorter and shorter, although luckily that seems to be a trend that is changing. And it wasn't all killing and death matches. Another thing you could do was to compare your progress through games with your online friends. So when a new game came out, you could have a little bit of friendly rivalry to see who had made the most progress through the game or found the most secrets. But things were still changing. And we started to see the free-to-play online games coming into the marketplace. Early entrants such as World of Tanks had a huge impact with people that didn't really want to spend on a game that they didn't know if they were going to like. Of course, this brought in a completely different revenue model, one where you made your money through downloadable content or DLC. And in the early days, the downloadable content often gave you extra powers in the game, so people that bought it ended up having a bit of an advantage, whereas other DLC was purely cosmetic. And whether you liked World War II and these sorts of battle games, or whether you were more into your science fiction and things like Star Trek Online, these free-to-play games rely on multiplayer online gaming in order to make their money, in order to sell you downloadable content. Then the market really got shaken up by Fortnite. Again, it was not necessarily the first at anything it did. It wasn't the first Battle Royale. That was PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. It wasn't the first free-to-play. It wasn't the first to offer cosmetic DLC. But it brought them all together in a hugely successful format. And sometimes in video gaming, it's just bringing together the elements in an overall package that hits the sweet spot that makes all of the difference. So despite Fortnite's success, if you wanted to play with your friends, it was still often quite an adversarial affair. Most of the games on offer were death matches, battle royales, that sort of thing. There had been some online cooperative play, but it had been pretty sparse. But things are changing there. One example that's working really well is Minecraft Dungeons, using the Minecraft universe and intellectual property, but in a hugely entertaining manner. You can team up with your friends in teams of up to 4 and play cooperatively. So you don't have to shoot your friends, you can play alongside them. So it looked as if there was nothing new in the world of online gaming, but that wasn't to be. Sony introduced PlayStation Now on the PlayStation 4. And this was a streaming service. Instead of downloading the games to your console, particularly as at the time not everyone had fantastic broadband connections, what happened is the game was streamed. So effectively your console simply became something to display what servers elsewhere were actually giving it. And this was a taste of the future. It perhaps wasn't as successful as it should have been. It wasn't pushed particularly hard, partly because a lot of people didn't have the bandwidth on their broadband, and partly because the games were actually only in 720p, which contrasted with the 1080p of a lot of the games that you'd installed at the time. But it was perhaps a taste of things to come. And not to be outdone, Microsoft launched Project xCloud. As you can see from this advertising copy, there were lots of games available even to people on the preview and beta programs. But there was a fundamental difference. Xbox was not wanting to put it onto your existing Xbox TV screen. They were targeting mobile and devices that normally would not be powerful enough to give you the full Xbox experience. Well, this technology has now rolled out and is pretty mature. And if you have the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you'll have seamless access on your mobile to this whole streamed experience. And that should be where this story finishes. But no, there was a new entrant to the market in late 2019. It was, of course, Google Stadia. And I'm going to devote much more time later on this year to seeing how Google Stadia is getting on. It had a bit of a scruffy launch, but it had loads and loads of promise. It worked very well. It worked on relatively modest broadband, and it looked at the time as if we were experiencing the future of gaming. It hasn't perhaps had the market penetration or the impact that Google would have liked, but they're perhaps playing the long game. And it does look like streaming is here to stay and is the way forward in a number of scenarios. So I hope you enjoyed that little look as to how multiplayer gaming has evolved. If you did, and you're interested in other things in my channel, please hit subscribe. You can see a link in the video, or there's that red button on my channel. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again next time.